Well, we'll get started. Like I had said, if you have questions, make sure to drop those in the Q&A. We'll actively monitor that throughout today's webinar. We're also recording this presentation. So if you guys want a recording of it, kind of like I was saying earlier, we're going to go over a whole lot of information here in the next hour. I'm going to do my best to make it tangible and provide actionable insights, be as informative as we can. There also, you'll see our group email listed, info@Ascent Digital Agency. Encourage everybody, if you have questions or want more information on some of the topics that we talk about today, to send us an email. We're eager to help answer questions and to help offer as much insight as we can. So with that, I'm going to dive in. Topic of conversation today is we're going to be talking about, generally speaking, programmatic display advertising. And the way we have it broken out is into different layers. And the reason that we have that is these specific different targeting elements. And the intention for today's conversation is to talk about ways to more effectively use the targeting that's available for programmatic display advertising so that it makes an impact on your business. Programmatic display advertising is something that I think a lot of businesses are starting to see the value in. They're starting to utilize. What we're finding, though, is that a lot of businesses are lacking the strategy behind it to really give them the most bang for their buck. And so that's what we want to talk about today. I would say that this will be a successful presentation if at the end of it, you've got your gears turning for some creative ways on how you can apply these different targeting metrics, when it relates specifically to your business and making an impact there. So generally speaking, though, the three categories we're going to be talking about are display ads, and that'd be targeted display ads, geofencing, which are location-based display advertisement. And we'll talk about that where we do device ID, micro proximity, and real specific location-based targeting. And then the third layer is search and site retargeting, and we'll dive into that too throughout the presentation. Some of the reasons why, and just to kind of frame the conversation of why targeted display ads are so important, is that we kind of, and here at Ascent, we talk about the buying cycle quite a bit, and the sales funnel and the people's buying journey when they're online. And we really like to utilize display advertising because it's a very effective way to touch people across different stages of that buying cycle. So we just wanted to have this slide in here to talk about the different stages of your consumers. And we kind of have it outlined with the awareness stage, interest, intent, purchase, and then post-purchase, which translates to loyalty. And to be kind of having that in the front of mind when you're thinking about your display advertising strategy, of what language are we talking to our customers in, what stage of the buying cycle are they in, and are we talking to them appropriately? Which is why these tactics start to come into play and how they layer on one with another. For example, we wouldn't want to invite someone back to purchase a product again if they're just in the awareness stage. There's a different conversation to have with that potential customer, versus an existing customer and things like that. So that's kind of the reason to be aware of the buying cycle and your customer's journey. So to start, though, what are targeted display ads? And what I like to tell people is that they are the ads that kind of follow you around online. And here at Ascent, we really like to focus on to whom your ads are served more so than where they're served. And so what I mean by that is we're not necessarily worried if your ad is displayed on yahoo.com or MSNBC or ESPN or Weather Channel. What we care is that the person who's seeing it is a qualified, somebody who should be seeing your ad and is in your target audience. But these are some examples of programmatic display ads and the different sizes and the different types of sites that they display on. And then I wanted to touch real quick too on, as you're kind of thinking this through, there's kind of a recurring theme here that we talk about often, and we've already sort of touched on how important your audience is, and the targeting is what we're going to dive into for the majority of this conversation. But just important as who we're speaking to is what we're telling them. And that's really what makes for an effective display campaign is are we telling the right story to the right people? And so we want to have at least one slide in here to talk about some best practices in terms of designing your ad. The first one is to make sure that there's a value proposition. Make sure that it calls attention to what you're doing, what makes you different. It might be, feature highlights or a new sale or a new product or things like that. We always recommend too that on your display ads, there's a call to action. The whole ad is typically clickable, but we like it to be obvious for a customer that they can interact with your ad, start to drive some traffic to your website. And then branding. So one of the biggest benefits of programmatic display advertising is building brand equity, building brand trust, kind of that top of mind awareness. And so we really want to make sure no matter what stage of what layer of targeting we're utilizing or what stage of the cycle we're in, that we're utilizing your brand, we're highlighting your logo and capitalizing on that as much as possible. And then just a few kind of high level reasons to use programmatic display. The first one, kind of like I just touched on with the branding piece of it, is it is outstanding reach. Great way to effectively cast a very wide net and reach a lot of potential customers. The other one is that it's visually appealing. What we like to utilize a lot of times too is GIF ads or animated ads. We find that it helps draw the eye to it and helps your creative stand out. Strong brand awareness, like I had talked about, highly targeted, which is what we're going to dive into for the rest of the presentation. And then finally, it pairs well with other products. One of the things that we're going to talk about today is search retargeted display ads. And that's because of how well it goes with your paid search efforts. If you guys are running PPC or if you're doing Google AdWords or whatever it might be, you should really consider utilizing display to complement those efforts too. And then just a fun stat that 20% of consumers conduct a search for a business after seeing their display ad, which is kind of an interesting thing to note, that a lot of times what we're doing is kind of creating demand. We're creating the brand awareness. And that's why the search and display go so well together. We find that when clients are running display ads, the search volume for their branded term actually goes up quite a bit. We start to see customers searching for them by name, as well as an increase in the categorical type searches. So now to kind of dive into the meat of the presentation, what we're going to talk about today are not only how to utilize display advertising, but the different targeting layers and how to kind of get creative with how we're targeting our display ads. So some of the things that we like to utilize, one of them is frequency targeting. And what that is we're able to limit the number of times your ad is viewed by a specific person. And what we like to use that for is to start to see when our clicks happen, start to measure where the engagement takes place, and make sure we're not oversaturating our potential customer. The last thing we want to do is be serve too many impressions to somebody. Or conversely, we'd hate to have them drop off of our targeting when they were just about to interact or we were just about to convert them. So we pay a lot of attention to the frequency of which ads are served, and then we hone in on that through frequency targeting. Content targeting is pretty straightforward. It's the type of content that your ad will be displayed next to. So for example, you could be a general contractor, and we'll make sure to use content targeting for people that are reading articles on bathroom designs or kitchen remodel inspiration. A great place to have your general contractor ad displayed. Day parting is the time of day that your ad is displayed. And so what we like to do is make sure that the ads are displayed when we have the most quality audience. So we usually default to showing your ads in daytime hours and shutting them off in the middle of the night in the early morning hours, unless it is applicable to your business, obviously. Another one is behavioral targeting, and we're going to dive into that quite a bit in this presentation. But basically what that is serving ads to customers based on their online behavior, things that they're interested in, types of content they're consuming, sites that they're visiting, things like that. Demographic targeting is targeting specific ages, incomes, genders, kind of the who we are type of targeting. Geographic targeting, I think, is pretty straightforward, but we're able to target people based on where they physically live, physically reside. We can get pretty detailed with that down to zip codes, cities, states, counties, and then we can get even more specific with geographic targeting when we start to talk about geofencing and getting down to specific addresses. Search retargeting is where we're able to serve ads to people based on the types of terms they're searching in search engines like Google. We like to joke at the office that if people are looking for a restaurant, they're typically hungry. And what I mean by that is that people are oftentimes looking for the services or products that you offer, they just don't know it yet. And that's where we like to utilize search retargeting. If somebody's looking for a problem that you can solve, we want to make sure now that we can present you as an opportunity to help them solve that problem. And then lastly is site retargeting. And that's where we're able to target users after they have visited your website. We utilize this a lot in e-commerce businesses, shopping cart abandonment, and re-engaging with existing customers or people that we think are close to being at the bottom of the funnel and actually converting. So just some examples on demographic targeting, like we had talked about, it's household income, ages. We can target based on education level, ethnicity. A good way to kind of, if you've kind of got an idea of who your ideal customer is and they fit into certain demographics, we definitely want to layer that in and include that in your display campaigns. And then behavioral targeting, and this one will, and just so everybody knows, throughout the presentation, we're going to get a little bit more and more in depth as we go. So these layer on with each other. But the next layer of it is behavioral targeting. And that's where we're able to target customers based on their online behavior, like I had said earlier. What's great about this is it's precise, it's highly effective, and we're able to put people into these buckets and kind of label the type of behaviors that are indicative of the fact that they're at least on some level in the market for the services that you offer. So these are some examples of behavioral targeting ideas. Auto buyers, auto owners, enthusiasts in certain areas, homeowners, people that are maybe interested in mountain biking or running, different types of interests and lifestyles, things like that. We can target pet owners. We can target people based on political leanings. If they're shopping or in market, we like to call those intenders. So we could target ads to a automotive intender or real estate intender, people whose behavior has shown that they're in the market for, those products or services. And here's some more examples, occupations, pet store shoppers, things like that. And what I'm going to encourage everybody to do is start to think outside of the box on who your customer is and what their day-to-day life looks like and how we can paint our picture to better establish our strategy and then apply it to our targeting. A great example of this is we've got a client that's a nonprofit, and they do like PTSD training with pets. And one of their initiatives was that they actually wanted to increase donors. So we were tasked with finding an audience for people that were likely to donate to them, and then also, kind of build their brand equity. And what we were able to do is kind of combine some of these behavioral targeting to really nail their ideal customer. So for example, for that one, we had a layer of targeting for people that were likely to be, philanthropic, likely to donate to nonprofits, and then also pet lovers. And, with a emphasis on supporting veterans and PTSD and mental health and stuff like that. And that's where all of these segments combine to be very powerful. Serving those ads to somebody who loves pets may or may not prompt them to become a donor for this nonprofit organization, but serving those ads to somebody who loves pets is likely to donate to nonprofit organizations, and has an interest in veteran affairs. All of a sudden the likelihood of success for that ad campaign went up significantly. So I'd encourage you, when you're thinking about your own business and your customers' behaviors, to think outside the box on those other parameters that can increase the likelihood of us, serving ads to the right people, because that's really when this stuff can get super powerful. And then, like we had talked about, another layer to display advertising is content targeting. And so this is where we're displaying your ads on relevant content. And what I like to do here, again, is try to encourage our clients to think a little bit outside the box on the types of content that would be a good idea to display your ads. So for example, maybe your ideal customer is moms, and maybe you're a I don't know, a beauty salon or a makeup store or something like that, we could place your ad on parenting content. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like on beauty related content because you're a hair salon. But if your target audience is mothers, we could serve your ad on the type of content that mothers are going to be reading. And kind of thinking outside the box on how to effectively position those ads too. And now we're going to start to get into to some of the fun stuff. So to backtrack a little bit, the difference is between targeting and retargeting. So targeting, like I had just explained, I would define targeting as who we are. You know, the things that make us up of who we are day to day would be targeting. Retargeting are things we've done or an action we've taken. Now we're able to retarget based on that. So for this example, or this next layer, which is site retargeting, the thing they have done is visited your website. So this is where the messaging of our ad can change, the approach of it can change, because somebody has taken an action now that has put them into our retargeting bucket and has now put them at a different layer of our sales funnel or their buying cycle. So the way site retargeting works is that a user engages with your campaign. They click on one of our other ads. They visit your website organically. Maybe they click through a paid search ad. And now they end up on your website and they engage with your website. They then leave your website and go about their online behavior, their day-to-day online behavior, and begin visiting other sites. Now we follow them with the display ad because they had visited your site. And what we start to see happen when we do this properly is that the click-through rates on those ads go through the roof because it's inviting people back into our sales funnel. It's inviting them back into their buying cycle. They engage with the ad, end up back on your website, and there's a much higher likelihood that there will be a conversion take place, whether they're calling you, booking an appointment, or actually purchasing your product. Another one, and this is maybe my favorite way to target display ads, and it's utilizing search retargeting. So again, that theme that retargeting is a thing we've done, an action we've taken. We like to apply search retargeting when people have taken an action and searched specific terms. So like I had said, the kind of running joke here at the office is that if people search for restaurants, they're usually hungry. And the reason we joke about that or kind of have tongue in cheek on it is rarely are our customers saying I'm hungry, but they are searching for solutions to the problem or looking for ideas or looking for inspiration or a provider. And so what I would encourage you to do as a business owner or a decision maker is start to sort of think about the type of things that are bringing people into your sales funnel, the type of problems they might be having, the type of things they might be trying to solve, the type of questions they might be answering, and how we can utilize search retargeting. A lot of what we find some great results here are professional services that also have kind of a DIY component. So if you're an auto mechanic and people are searching to kind of do that self-diagnosing, why is my car making this noise? Or, best way to diagnose this or whatever it might be, that's a great indicator that should put them into our retargeting bucket. Now we can serve them ads that, oh, by the way, your business can solve the problem that they're looking for. Let's see. Sorry, it just froze. Can you guys still see my screen? Cool. So here's some examples too, and kind of along the lines of my tongue in cheek, if you're looking for a restaurant, you're hungry, but this would be an example for somebody who's looking for how to whiten their teeth naturally. They're going to Google, they're going to search engines, and they're starting to look for those solutions. And then we can retarget them with ads for, for example, Crest White Strips or whatever it might be that's a relevant retargeted ad. And then the last layer that we're going to talk about today is geofencing. So what is geofencing? Geofencing is probably the most, when used properly, geofencing is the most powerful tactic. It does have a bit of it's kind of got some buzz about it right now. And if you're on the line and you've been doing display advertising, I would caution you to know the difference between geofencing and geo-targeting, because the two sound very similar. So geo-targeting is those very broad geographic targeting like we had talked about. So the county that you're serving, the city, zip codes, things like that. Geofencing is very, very specific, where we're able to geofence specific locations, addresses, buildings, venues, things like that, competitors. And we'll dive into some of the applications of it. First, some reasons why you might consider utilizing geofencing is that it allows you to target customers on their devices based on where they are currently located or where they have been in the past, which in turn provides the following benefits to your customers: precise targeting, increased engagement, better efficiency, boosted ROI, and we also don't have to rely on cookies. We had talked earlier about behavioral targeting and the idea that is the capability to target people based on their online behavior. What I love about geofencing is it now gives us the capability to target people based on their offline behavior, events that they've attended, conferences that they've attended, stores that they've entered, places that they've gone to. And it's a really, really powerful way to hone in exactly on your ideal customer. And we'll dive in a little bit on how we can apply it too. This is a case study that we'll send out. I want to keep talking today about, so we can kind of paint the picture more for your specific businesses. But after the call, we'll send out this deck for everybody so you guys can kind of dive into these case studies. So a little bit more on how device ID works. With device ID geofencing, we're able to create custom polygons around different locations. So this is an example here of where we've drawn the polygon around a specific shopping center. And we can do multiple of these. So if you're I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe you're a real estate agent and you want to geofence, mortgage brokerage offices or spec homes, model homes, or something like that. It doesn't have to just be one location. And then what we do is after we've drawn those polygons, we then set a historic window of time. It can go up to a year, and we can get the data for people that entered that location in the set window of time that we've done. So if you're doing competitor conquesting, it might be relevant to go back a full year. A lot of times what we'll do for clients is we'll geofence conferences or things like that, where it's a small window of time, but a high density of in market people. Maybe it's an industry specific conference, or we're doing one right now for a athletic app, and we're geofencing coaches conferences and things like that. So we can specify the dates, or we can do a long window. And then, so here's how that works: is that when a customer enters that specific area that we've drawn the polygon around, our devices tell us that we've entered it. And there's a lot of apps on people's phones that enable location services. Weather is one that's very common to tell people exactly where you are. And once that device has gone into that polygon, it pings it. And that's how we're able to know, who to target based on the devices that entered those areas. What's really cool, and I'm going to encourage you guys to take advantage of this, and we don't usually give these out, but anybody that's on the webinar today, if you think this would be helpful, please reach out, and we'd love to run one of these for you for free. What this is an audience insight report. And I love utilizing these because we're able to tell, it just paints a really big picture on the type of people that are entering these specific locations. So what we can do is we can draw those polygons like we had talked about, and we do it conversationally with our clients. And then we set those parameters for the backdates back, and we end up with an audience insight report, which gives us a ton of great data, like the number of unique devices, the frequency of which people are visiting those locations, the time of day that they're visiting those locations, the days of the week that they're visiting those locations, the zip codes, household incomes, if they have kids or not. A ton of really, really great data comes from these audience insight reports. And what's really cool about them too is we've even found a few occasions where clients will utilize an audience insight report for kind of some different perspectives. An example that I've used before is maybe you're considering if you should be open on the weekends or not, and your competitor is. We can run an audience insight report on your competitor and check their foot traffic on weekends and kind of help you paint that picture of, if it makes sense strategically to do some things like that. The other thing it does, though, is it gives you real information on who your customers are. So we'll also use these audience insight reports a lot for our current customers, and we'll geofence their own location. So we know exactly who's walking in our doors, exactly who's who's attending these conferences and things like that. So anyway, they're really cool. And if you guys want us to run an audience insight report for you, we'd be happy to. Just send us an email at that info@ascentdigitalagency.com. And it'll, I think, paint the picture for a larger conversation for us to have. And so just to take that a little bit deeper, it's location targeting is to reach customers who have visited locations in the past. So know that there's always a little bit of a lag. Once we do the geofencing and we start the device ID campaign, we usually get that data about 48 hours later. So it'd be like if somebody goes to a conference, we're able to start serving them ads the following week. There are some methods we can do if we need to serve ads to people while they're in those locations. It's probably too much to dive into in today's conversation. But if that's applicable to you, let us know and we can dive into that too. And I'm realizing I'm already at my, or no, it's only been a half hour. So, and then diving into on how we can better utilize, kind of some of this device ID data. And what we like to do then is we're able to track what's called a foot traffic attribution report. And so what's really powerful about this is based on the device ID targeting and the people that we're serving those ads to, we're able to tell you when they've now walked into your store or, walked your lot if you're a car dealership or whatever it might be. And it's a really cool insight for us to have those conversations with you to know, how effective are our efforts? Are the people that are seeing our ads actually converting and actually walking in the door? And again, one of my favorite things about this is historically, with digital marketing, we've always been able to track clicks. We've always been able to track impressions and, traffic to website and things like that. And this is where device ID gets so exciting because much like we're able to track or target based now on offline behaviors, we're also able now to do some reporting based on offline conversions and actual foot traffic, which is a really cool thing to have in our back pocket. So some of the differentiators is one-to-one device match that is matched and verified. So we know that these devices entered these locations. The other one, and I touched on this earlier, is that we're also able to do several locations. And the fact that our device ID data is specific, we can use latitude and longitude, and that it's not included in a data pool. We verify it, make sure that it's real. And then lastly, the fact that we've gone the extra mile by matching devices back to their home addresses, and then we can match that data to publicly available information about the people who live there. And that's a cool thing too that I think I forgot to mention, which is this idea of back geo. But let's say, for example, we're targeting a conference or something like that. We're also able to tell where they went back to, which, as a business owner or a decision maker, again, it kind of paints those larger conversations about, where are people returning to? Where should we be doing our full-blown geographic targeting? Do we need to refine that a little bit? What are the relevant kind of parameters to set up around that? And then this is another case study that we'll send out. And I'll just talk through this one though real quick. And this is a car dealer that was doing it was a 2-month snapshot was how long the campaign was. Their objective was that they wanted to increase service appointments and then also new car sales. The challenge was tracking advertising spends to ensure that the tactics were working and actually driving a return on their investment, which if you're listening and you're a business owner, I'm sure you relate to that, how hard it is to sometimes, track all of this. And so what we came up with was that we have and continue to serve display ads with device ID targeting to custom zip codes in relevant neighborhoods, their competitor locations, and then a few other relevant locations auto mechanic shops and things like that. And then utilize multiple ads to include those various brands and service offerings. So the advertiser supplies a monthly sales report for both service appointments and car sales. Over a 2-month time period, we were able to match 192 service appointments and 41 car sales, which was an estimated $91,000 in revenue for the dealership, which was about an 11 times return on their investment in just 2 months. And some of the key findings were that the device ID ads not only served a precise audience, but also provided a CRM match with the back reporting to help determine a better ROI on the campaign. And that CRM match is another one that we could talk about, if it applies to your business. But really the takeaway with that is how powerful this tactic is when applied properly. And then also how important it is to us that you're getting a strong return on your investment and that the reporting is there and that, we're able to kind of have these strategic conversations with you so that where your ad's going and how effective things are. So with that, that's kind of the presentation. I know I went over a ton. I probably talked too fast. I didn't think I'd be able to fit it into an hour, and I fit it into 30 minutes. But so we've got time for questions if people want. If there's questions. Otherwise, we can give some people the time back. It does look like there's one thing in the chat. And you guys might be muted if there's. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time and for listening to us. If follow up and if you want to dive in deeper on any of that, like I said, send us an email. Best way to reach us is info@ascentdigitalagency.com. Otherwise, really appreciate the time, and we'll talk to everybody soon.